So let's talk about The Acolyte for a few minutes. This past Monday, the AV Club had an interview with Leslye Headland, and she talked about her upcoming series. She talked about the writer's room a bit and mentioned that one of the writers has never seen any Star Wars media. The full quote reads, "I literally had one writer that was like, I have never seen any of them. I've never seen any Star Wars media." And she's texting me before we started the room. She's like, "Luke and Leia are brother and sister? What the?" And it was so great because I would really love to know from someone who is not fully immersed in this fandom, what do you think about the pitch we just made? So while she did her due diligence and did a lot of background work and research, at the same time, she was somebody that we could kind of talk to and say, okay, so if we take all the kind of signifiers out of it, and this is Star Wars version of X, what does it mean to you? She would be able to give some feedback. Well, I'm kind of wondering what's going on with this character, and in this scene I'm wondering why so-and-so isn't saying this. I think that all makes sense, but like clockwork, I went on Twitter and I saw people getting all worked up about it. So I want to dive into that really quickly. Does it matter at all? Do people have to be diehard Star Wars fans to work on Star Wars projects? Is this some horrible sign of impending doom for the Acolyte? Let me start by reading a quote from another Star Wars writer. It says, "I've never been interested in Star Wars, ever, so I had no reverence for it whatsoever. I was unafraid about that." That quote is from Tony Gilroy in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter talking about his work on Rogue one of the most universally appreciated Star Wars stories of the Disney era. Someone who had no interest or reverence for Star Wars came in with fresh eyes and helped tell a fantastic story. Now, full transparency here, when I read the Headland interview, I was a little surprised. I mean, partially because it's just so rare nowadays to see anyone who's never seen anything Star Wars. But yeah, a part of me did kind of clutch my pearls a little bit, like, oh my gosh, someone who's not a lifelong fan is now in the writer's room. But then when I stop and think and actually challenge myself about it, I don't have any good reasoning for it at all. I mean, first of all, it's just one writer in that writer's room. Leslye Headland is still the showrunner. It's her show, she is in control, and she is undeniably a diehard Star Wars fan. Second of all, it's good to have fresh eyes on a universe like Star Wars. It's far more important to be a good storyteller than to be the world's biggest Star Wars fan. I've been saying myself how much I want Star Wars to start getting a little weirder and spreading out, and getting away from, treading the same ground as the Skywalker saga over and over. The Acolyte sounds like it's going to be that. It's set 50-ish years before the prequels. It's a mystery thriller, which is kind of a different genre for live-action Star Wars to explore. It sounds like there is going to be a lot of new in the Acolyte for Star Wars, and it makes sense to get some new eyes on a project like that. When I have reactions like I did to this, I try to keep things in perspective by looking at my responses to other universes that I'm more casually a fan of, like the MCU. If I learned that there was a writer in Loki that had never read a Loki or even a Marvel comic, I wouldn't give it a second thought. I like the show so far. Or maybe an even better example is to look at the Wizarding world. I remember seeing The Crimes of Grindelwald and just having no idea what was going on. I literally had the Harry Potter wiki pulled up to keep track of who was who. In my opinion, that film was written with the assumption that everyone watching it was a diehard fan, and as a very, very casual Potter fan, I felt completely alienated. I actually laughed about that film because I thought to myself, this is what would happen if I wrote a Star Wars movie. I'd get way too lost in the weeds. Having an outside perspective probably would have benefited The Crimes of Grindelwald quite a bit. Not to mention, it should be stated that having a die-hard Star Wars fan at the helm isn't a guarantee that a project will be universally loved either. J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson are both lifelong fans of the franchise, and no matter your feelings on the sequel trilogy, we all know what the discourse surrounding the films is like. And I admit I'm assuming here, but I'm willing to bet that a lot of the people bemoaning the fact that someone who's never seen Star Wars is in the Acolyte's writer's room would probably list Rogue One as their favorite Disney-era film. Remember, the movie that loud and proud non-Star Wars fan Tony Gilroy worked on? Oh, and don't forget that he's the showrunner on Andor, so should we be worried about Andor now? No, the guy is a good writer, and it's not like he's just been thrown into a Star Wars project with no support. That's what the story group is for. Gilroy probably wants to write a kick-ass spy story first and foremost, and I'm sure he has help fitting it into the Star Wars aesthetic. My point is, at this point in time, knowing that someone who hadn't seen Star Wars until they started working on a Star Wars project means nothing. All that matters is the end result. If you wind up loving The Acolyte, you're going to forget all about this interview. If you wind up hating it, I don't know, maybe you'll come back here and use this one little thing as some sort of scapegoat. But to say that the project is doomed now is jumping the gun by a whole lot for a completely silly and, in my opinion, irrelevant reason. I am not saying that The Acolyte is going to be a masterpiece because there's a new fan in the Star Wars writers' room giving it fresh eyes, but I am saying that it's not a death sentence, the same way that having a lifelong, die-hard fan in the writers' room isn't some sort of magical guarantee. Everyone sees Star Wars differently. That's why every Star Wars story has potential to be so controversial, whether they're told by a brand new or a die-hard Star Wars fan, because there's no one right way to enjoy Star Wars. We all have those things that just scream Star Wars to us, but those elements don't show up in every single movie or TV series or book or whatever. Personally, I am very excited for The Acolyte because it sounds like it's going to be very fresh and new, and that was going to be true regardless of who was in the writer's room. It's just down to the base concept. I want that, but I know not everybody does. But that's why it's such a great time to be a Star Wars fan, because if any one project underwhelms you or isn't what you wanted, there are so many other projects in the pipeline to look forward to. Anyway, that's my take on this whole situation. I will link to both articles from AV Club and The Hollywood Reporter down in the description if you want to read them and make up your mind for yourself, which you should. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and consider checking out our Patreon page. As always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.